Cecil said, I don't care what I'm
Cecil said, I don't care. Oh, when I talked to Melinda,
Ideally, they're great.
ideal. I talked to Melinda Loudner about it. She's like, yeah, they split us, so we don't have to make treasure out the farm. Well, yeah.
I identify as a green tractor.
There you go.
Get the video going? You got the thing going?
That was, we had it like 95 degrees and whatever.
So I have 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call the Tuesday, August 26th Long Lake Township Planning Commission meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Paulson? Figuera?
Here.
Murphy?
Here.
And Verche?
Here.
And Bott, Wagner, and Lyon are all absent and excused.
I'd like to invite everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item is approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve it.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Sherry and supported by Tim to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Agenda's approved. Conflict of interest statement. Does anybody have a conflict with tonight's business? Seeing none, move on to brief public comment. Anybody may address us for 3 minutes. Nobody? All right. Moving on, approval of the minutes. We have two. We have from our July meeting and then the ad hoc tree preservation committee meeting. So look at the regular meeting minutes first. If there's any comments or edits, let me know. Otherwise, we'll look for a motion to approve them.
Support.
Motion by Dan, support by Sherry to accept or approve the minutes as presented. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next is the ad hoc tree committee meeting minutes. I think we just accept and file them. So, look for a motion to do that.
So moved. Second. Second.
Motion by Sherry and support by Tim to accept and file the tree preservation ad hoc committee meeting minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are accepted and filed. Postponed business, we have none. We have no public hearings tonight. No pending business, just new business, which is activity centers, local business district review and discussion. Turn it over to Cody to kick it off, please.
All right, I'm pulling double duty here, so 1 second. Perfect, okay. So last planning commission meeting, commission members asked me to bring back in front of you the local business district current allowed uses, along with the definitions for those uses to discuss, to aid in your discussion for activity centers moving forward. Just to reinforce what we've discussed before, local business district in our zoning map are these pink areas up here. They fall primarily, I think almost exclusively within the west and north activity centers. The uses are provided in Article 15, which you will see in your packet, along with the information that was provided by staff regarding each of these uses and their definitions and provisions and/or conditions that go along with them. So staff put that back together for you to aid in your discussions tonight.
Thanks, Cody. So yeah, back to this topic. Can you remind us what we looked at rezoning the area?
Correct. So the actions that were took this spring by the Planning Commission were to look at different ways to implement the Activity Center subplan. One of the methods we had discussed and was agreed upon to investigate further was to expand and realign uses in the local business district. So just a reminder, as conversation point, some of the options we had talked about as far as implementing portions of the activity centers included overlay districts or rezoning or changing uses in existing zoning districts. And after exploring those options, the Planning Commission put effort into rezoning part of the West Activity Center from commercial to local business district, and then realigning some of those uses. So that zoning ordinance amendment failed to pass the Planning Commission, and then was since not talked about since the spring. Last Planning Commission meeting, we were discussing activity centers yet again, and one of the options that the Planning Commission looked to discuss further was revisiting the local business district. So currently, the local business district is found in both the west and north activity centers. There had been some discussion last meeting regarding treating the activity centers differently or the same, and looking at the local business district. If you folks are looking to make a change in that district, it would be affecting portions of both of those activity centers.
So, where do we start? We're back to looking at the uses. I think that's what we decided where to start last time. Does anybody have any strong opinions about what we started with in the spring and didn't get through? I was reviewing the list of what we looked at removing.
My computer's making a lot of noise, so I'm
Is that
moving to a
where
different mic.
Is that where the feedback is?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
I feel like we're at a little bit of a disadvantage with so many of the members not here tonight. My suggestion last time was to do a pilot program using the North Center rather than just diving in face first. And I don't know what if there was a consensus about that or what the other members felt about that. But what we're proposing is a pretty major change, and I think the North Activity Center is the one that's most aligned with the goals of what the members of the township have proposed, and so I'd like to explore that.
I remember the discussion about the pilot program just in the north one, and that would be like the area, Moomers, is that the north or is the north
Right, that's the north.
Gotcha. I keep thinking of the M72 corridor,
Oh.
where all the other
That-
businesses are.
That
are
is the
located.
northernmost corridor. too.
Yes, but the,
What would you recommend in the pilot program? What would that consist of?
I don't have specific recommendations. I guess what I was recommending that we take our conversation in that direction. In the conversations that we've had over the past year, in several instances, Cody has cautioned us about, making dramatic changes, and Cody, you'll have to help me with this, but basically, remind me, basically at one time you said if we change the zoning, it would bring up problems a different set of problems. You had talked at one time about, my memory is not serving me well here, but that right now, as the uses are, there are certain types of development that are allowed that aren't in line with the activity center program. However, if we were to change zoning, it would bring up a whole new set of problems. And what I heard you advising us was to try to find some middle road that would plan for the future based on what the members of the township have recommended to us, but in a way that's measured and kind of stepped.
Yeah, so the classic example I used on that is right now, the activity center subplan that was put together by Networks Northwest, it would incentivize a closer setback to the road. And what my caution is if you implement everything to the letter that subplan outlines, we currently have a road that's 55 miles an hour on North Long Lake through the North Activity Center. And moving somebody 10 feet off of that doesn't seem like a safe option, or requiring them to be that close doesn't seem like a safe option to do so, knowing that the Grand Traverse County Road Commission is currently working on trying to put in some traffic calming measures, especially between East Long and Strait. That would be a portion of the activity subplan that, in my opinion, or in a planner's opinion, wouldn't necessarily fit the current zoning. The other thing that I've mentioned before is anytime we make a zoning change, just in general across the board, especially with something this large, we're going to make existing nonconformities. So the things that are there currently that don't necessarily fit with the 50-year vision that's outlaid, changing all of them at once is going to make a greater number of existing nonconformities than maybe taking a slower approach that would allow for the existing business to potentially change, or a lot that's not developed currently to better fit the vision that's outlined. So if you go and change all the uses all at once and all in one fell swoop, you're going to make more existing nonconformities than if we were to change slowly and through the process.
Right. So, but it seems like there are a bunch of catch-22s in there, because the existing lots under the current zoning can be developed in a way that aren't in conformance with a long-term plan. So I guess I'm trying to parse out what's a compromise between these disparate elements.
That comes down to the 7 of your motivations. So if the 7 of you think I'm blowing smoke and putting 10 feet setbacks is definitely needed for the township, you should do that if that's the desire of you. There's compromises between the 7 of you because each of you will have a different vision. If I were to sit you down and have you draw out what either of those intersections should look like, you're all going to have a little bit different of what you're interpreting that subplan to be. So if each of you came with a priority list, like these are the 5 things I think we need to change first, then you're going to work amongst yourselves to come up with a priority of what should be implemented first. So if it's incompatible uses, or if it's expanding uses because you want to see mixed use development at that area, those types of things, that's what especially staff is looking for to help guide you through that. But I can't advise you to implement the entire activity center. There was, I think, 12 objectives that came out of that, and 3 of them you guys have control over. The other 9 you don't have control over. It's either a board issue or a county road issue or a staff issue. So just saying, let's implement that's not specific
Yeah.
enough.
No, I understand that, and I'm looking for some middle ground. From my perspective, there are so many moving parts at this time. I mean, particularly with road, because that applies directly to what you said about the setbacks. I don't think we're in a position to even make a decision until, at the very least, we know what the road commission's going to do, and that's 2 years down the road.
And you're able to wait that long. Like, you don't have to implement portions of it currently. So what having the activity subplan as part of our master plan does for you is if a conditional land use comes up and you guys are reviewing it, part of our conditional land use is, does it fit the master plan? So the subsection of that master plan is activity center. So if there's a use that's going to apply for a conditional land use in one of those activity centers and it's incompatible with your subplan, you seven have the right to say, hey, citing that our subplan says this use doesn't really fit. You know, we're working on fixing things with the road commission and getting things set. You can deny that use because of that. So you give yourself a layer of protection that way, where you're able to pick and choose. The problem is, the only downside to that is it's not consistent, right? So you guys sit on 3-year terms, so in 3 years, the commission could look completely different. It could look very similar. Nobody knows and can crystal ball that into the future. So that's why zoning ordinances are written, so that it's consistent over 15, 20-year span, so commissions don't have that discretion. But while we're waiting for other things to come to fruition, you have that discretion to either limit or accept conditional land uses based on that subplan.
Well, that's helpful, and that makes sense. My opinion is that we're just not in a position to make any hard mandates. I think that if we, in the case of the conditional land uses, which is not all cases, obviously.
Correct.
But in those conditions, we can kind of guide toward the 20 or 50-year plan that the township is considering. But to make any hard and fast mandates right now, there are too many moving parts, from my perspective, to do that.
The only thing that might give you more control, if that's what you're looking to do, to keep it more in line with the activity center subplan, is either move a permitted use into a conditional use. So any of those permitted uses that are listed, you can exercise control by shifting if it's permitted or conditional. So if it's conditional, it'll come before you. If it's permitted, it will just go before the zoning administrator and make sure it meets all the general provisions.
Right, but that doesn't affect just the activity centers. That affects all areas that are under that zoning.
Correct. Right now, our local business district is only found in the north and west activity center.
Okay.
So that has the most, I guess, applicability to that. But we also have areas of commercial, which are different uses, and low-density residential, and I believe there's some moderate density residential, and there's some ag. So it's kind of a slew of different options. I think there's 6 different districts that fall within those areas. Speaking of the north and the west, not the hamlet. The hamlet has low density and lake residential. So yes, I agree. But somebody can't build as intensive a use on a low density res as they can on a local business or commercial. So
Yeah. My feeling is just, we're kind of stuck on this, and I don't think it's good protocol to come back every meeting and massage this and not have any results. And I'd like to I would like to implement this much more slowly. I think we should talk about a 3-year goal when we know what's happening with the road. I think we should focus on the North Activity Center and hopefully be successful enough with it that we can use that as a model for other areas in the township. But I think we're just wasting our time at this point because we don't have all the elements we need to make a wise and firm decision.
What about removing the north and moving forward with the plan that we all met on, the residents met. I mean, we spent a lot of time on this, and I think it would behoove us to move forward with it. We could exclude that one because of the magnitude of what needs to happen on that corner. And
Well,
then we
that-
could take our time to work on it as it progresses with the road commission and the other entities.
Well, my suggestion is to use the North as a pilot program. And that, by definition, means doing that one first. But I'm suggesting that we implement it slowly over the next 3 years, once we know what's going on. I think my impression is the consensus on the hamlet is that it's, the activity center structure doesn't really fit there. I don't think my impression from the other commissioners is that it's not really needed there. And I think the West Center is just too complicated right now. I think we need to work on an area where this program fits well and make it fit once all the elements are in place, mainly the road. Because I think then we've got some hard facts to work with. But right now, this impresses me as a pipe dream, and I'm not comfortable moving forward with it under those conditions.
So basically, we'd be at the behest of the road commission. If you look at major projects in the state, county, and local areas that aren't getting done, I don't see it happening.
You don't think the road commission is going to do anything with the intersection of Strait and East Long Lake?
Me personally, no. Been involved with road commissions for a long time. It all revolves around funding.
Well,
I mean, I'm sorry, excuse me. It depends on the traffic flow there. It depends on how many cars are going through there daily, accidents. I mean, they're going to look at priority areas first to allocate for funding.
Well, I think we need to work more closely with the road commission, but that intersection area has got to be a high priority. It's one of the nastiest intersections in the county.
Well, again, it depends on the total accidents, fatalities. They're going to look at fatality areas first and put the money in those areas. If anything, I perceive them putting stop signs versus a kidney-shaped roundabout that's going to cost, I don't even want to take a guess on it. Just my thoughts.
Well, I think we need to work closely with the road commission so that we're not working in a vacuum, because right now we don't have any place to plant our feet in implementing the ideas that are good ideas. And I think in a long term, they're excellent ideas. I support them fully. But I think it's irresponsible to make decisions without having some facts to work with. If we need to work to pin down the road commission, that's a worthy thing to do. But I don't want to just keep talking in circles, which is what we're doing at this point.
I think our supervisor has been working with the road commission on.
Yeah, and I think it's a priority area for the road commission. I think the project is planned. It's just the dollars, they need to obtain them or, pull a bunch of funding sources together to make the project happen. I think it's been determined that it's a safety issue and that it needs to be addressed. It's just, it's going to take a little time. And I don't think the road commission's necessarily going to be holding us up, but it's just a piece of the puzzle for that area that we need to be aware of and coordinate with. So,
But I do think we need some kind of an outline from them. Certainly, we don't want to change to a 10-foot setback if there's not going to be some kind of traffic calming in there.
right. Yeah, Cody.
Just real quick to interject and kind of shed light to at least what staff's been made aware of. Before May 1st, the Road Commission submitted an application to the federal government requesting funds through a grant process for that intersection. We will not know the determination of that until middle to end of October. At that time, the road commission will let us know whether or not they got funding for that intersection to put in some sort of traffic calming measure, which most likely will be a peanut-shaped roundabout style. So we'll be able to report better on that later this fall, whether or not we got it. My understanding is their intent is to continue to go after grant money to fund that currently.
I had a question for Cody.
Yes, sir.
If you could weigh in on this one. Stan was mentioning doing like a sort of a pilot where we look at the North Activity Center first, but noting that that's in the same zoning district as there's a couple other spots in the same zoning district. What are some ways that we could focus on the north without making changes to those other districts?
So some methods that I've seen before and we've actually utilized in the past, if you're not aware, for folks who aren't aware of it, we have our agricultural district, which is in the lighter green on our zoning map. We have an M72 overlay district, so any ag that touches M72 with a minimum threshold lot acreage falls within the agribusiness, agritourism overlay. And it allows for a few expanded uses for that agribusiness, agritourism nomenclature. So you could do something similar mechanism-wise, saying that in the local business district, certain uses you're allowed expanded use as long as that local business is inside of an activity center as defined by the master plan. But even me explaining it and having to qualify all those shows you how complicated that's going to get. But that is something where you could do slowly if you say, hey, we're going to section out this portion. Or your other option would be, we're going to take these different zoning districts, change it and put it into a different zoning, and then that's not currently existent, and then make your changes in that new zoning district. So periodically from 1979, we started out with, I believe it's 5 zoning districts. We have expanded obviously over the course of the year. So if that's a desire where we want to regulate certain areas more specifically, we could change and have an additional zoning district to allow for that.
Like, for example, rezoning the North Activity Center parcels to
Activity center.
Or activity center or local business 2 or some other zoning district that might have a lot of the same underlying things, but.
Correct.
similar.
It'd be a separate article. So right now, everything in pink falls under Article 15. I don't believe we have an Article 16. That makes sense. We just put any rules or regulations inside that new article.
I think, I tend to agree with maybe a measured approach, implementing it as in that one area. I think part of where we got hung up last time is when we started taking uses out of the district. And I don't think that that's probably anything we want to really pursue this time around, unless there's something striking that maybe isn't compatible, but looking at moving it to conditional might be the way to go. Something Cody mentioned earlier. So we're not, affecting property owners, maybe future plans or anything like that for what they want to do. I guess the question is, how do we start looking at this in a methodical manner?
I mean, the way to do what you just described is look at Article 15 that's in the packet and just start looking at the permitted uses and determine whether or not that fits the vision you're looking for moving forward. And if there's something in the permitted uses that you don't want to see in the district, then you remove it, or if it's something you see you want to have more regulation or control over, you'd move it to conditional uses. For example, just to use one, the third item in permitted uses is banking establishment. If the seven of you feel that banking establishment fits the activities that are subplan, but you feel that you would need to have a closer view of it before you approve it, then you would throw it under conditional uses. If you feel a banking establishment doesn't fit at all, we would just remove it from a use. Or conversely, if there's a use that you feel would be a good activity center use, you would add a new use to either the permitted or conditional, depending on how much regulation you want to have over it.
And this is what we did, at least, I think, for 2 or 3 meetings at workshops. We went through these line by line.
Correct. We were looking at it from a removal standpoint, so only things got removed and nothing got added. And that's what was proposed this spring for the zoning ordinance amendment that failed. If you change anything in Article 15, it's going to affect all the pink parcels on the zoning map, so it will affect the north and the west at the same time, unless we change some underlying zoning in only the north.
You mentioned the 3 of the 12 things we have. You mentioned that there's like, out of the 12
Objectives,
things,
yep.
objectives, there's 3 that, we can control. I mean, maybe we start there and kind of work through what our priorities are within those objectives. Is that, I'm looking for a methodical approach to kind of tackle this. And
We could look at each individual issue one at a time.
I think before we were kind of rushed with the moratorium and everything that we were trying to beat the clock. So maybe we didn't do a thorough analysis of that kind of a review. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we all agree that listening to the pressure on the moratorium is not a tenable situation. I think we take a measured approach, makes a lot more sense, and makes for a lot better policy. From my understanding, one of the goals of the activity centers was to make it possible for people not to have to drive into town. Is that true or false?
I'd say that's generally true.
So I don't see anything that was in banking. I think that small banking facility, I would be, well, I was going to say, it's one of the reasons people drive in town, with mobile banking, not so much.
Sure. So using a bank as an example, though, if somebody were to build a 7,500 square foot bank, they wouldn't have to come in front of the planning commission. So their site plan would all be reviewed by the ZA, it'd all be approved in-house, and the 7 of you wouldn't see anything. That's what happened with the dollar store that went in. It was a permitted use that never came in front of the planning commission, so you 7 did not have the ability to vote whether or not you felt it met the goals of the master plan. So if banking establishment is something you would like to see there, but within certain constraints, then you would take that use, move it into conditional uses, and you'd be able to comment on it. Or conversely, you would take the threshold for building floor area limits and lower that, but then you're not looking at the use, you're just looking at the size. So somebody with a 5,000 square foot bank could still go in there without coming to talk to you guys. So,
And one, I'm reading this, and I thought that one of your comments was that to reduce the size wouldn't really have any effect, because it's conditional use. People can always lobby for a bigger size, and they can get a permit and all, and, kind of versus it. That was my understanding.
true, but not only that, they're applying for conditional land use for size, not necessarily the use of the land. So they would still be able to put a bank there, they just wouldn't be able to put a 7,501 square foot bank, they could put a 7,500 square foot bank. So you're not blocking that use. If there's a particular use you don't want in a district, you remove it from that district. Unfortunately, you only can get so granular with uses. So, for example, with the dollar store, if you don't want a dollar store there because you feel like it doesn't meet the master plan, but you allow general retail establishments because you want the mom and pop shop, unfortunately, there's not a designation between those two. They all fall within the same. So, general retail establishment, maybe you put it in conditional uses, so then you'll have a little more governance over it, but I don't think you have the right then to tell them they can't do it because of what they sell. That's not a condition that you put on there. It's still the same use.
Well, I don't want to be stuck on this. I think that we should explore implementing conditional uses so that at least it gives us a place to start. And I don't see anything beyond that right now that makes sense for us to do.
So when you're saying implementing conditional uses, like just transferring a sizable number of the permitted uses to the conditional, so we have more review over them? Is that?
What would be the effect legally of just saying everything in that single sentence is a conditional use?
There are some uses the state makes us make a use by right. I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but I think like adult care, not adult care, family daycare home, I think is one of them. A couple others that they require us to keep as a permitted use. No, that doesn't mean we can't have provisions for that use and like standards that somebody has to meet, but there are a few state ones that they won't let us change. So once that one goes to legal review, they'll double check that for us and make sure that we're following all those.
So if we were to make all uses that aren't state mandated conditional, is that too broad a brush? Or do we want to make it be specific for every single use?
That would make any development in one of the pink areas on the zoning map have to come before you. And currently they have to for a site plan review, but not for the use itself. So it would just add a CLU to that site plan. So you would just be approving or denying two things instead of one thing. So you'd be approving the use and then the site plan on top of that. Because right now, if anybody wants to build something or add on or expand in a commercial establishment, they're required to bring it in front of you for site plan review. But putting everything into a conditional use would then allow you to use those standards as well. So in section 19.3, I think there's a list of 10 to 12 different conditions that a conditional land use has that gives you the ability with, I guess, more interpretation than just a site plan review. So it would give you more control over that area.
I understand this is tricky because our terms are only 3 years, but I mean, you've got to say something.
So where do we want to go with this? Keep talking about it tonight, or do we want to bring it back to when everybody's here? Have some time for,
I think we should have a conversation with the full commission. I don't think that we're representing the process. And given that we don't have a special moratorium, and that it seems to make sense to do this in a measured way, I don't see any problem with waiting another month to discuss it further.
I think that since there's so many caveats to it and unanswered questions and so on, I think we should schedule a couple workshops. And we can sit here and beat this thing down, meeting after meeting, and then new questions keep coming up, which is great. But let's roll our sleeves up have a couple workshops and lay it all out on the table, like we did previously with the residents, and even open it up to the public. They came in, there were a couple of events where they came in, and there was quite a few people at that meeting too, besides the committee members. So,
It seems like we'd probably be looking at convenience commercial establishments and general retail sales establishments. I'm guessing if we were gonna move some to conditional uses, even if we're doing it as like a holding pattern type thing, like while we look forward to the road change and, you know, what we might want to do in the future, maybe that's what we're thinking, is moving a couple of those things. I think a lot of those, like Cody said, we wouldn't be able to move and wouldn't really want to move. I only see a couple there that are really controversial uses for this type of an area, I would think. But probably good to do it with a subcommittee too.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing to implement, maybe for a couple meetings to get input from the businesses that are invested in that district, or the districts we're talking about, so.
I'm just trying to understand, so we went through the process of Networks Northwest where they held multiple meetings for public to come to and discuss, and they put together an 84-page document.
That was the master plan, or the sub-area plan.
Correct. So I'm trying to understand from my perspective, to help aid and guide through this, what are you looking from public that they haven't given you before?
Well, I think from my perspective, you know, we heard loudly from the public, or the specific businesses in those districts at our public hearing this spring, and I think having a workshop or a couple of them with them specifically, and maybe it's not as a planning commission, maybe it's a working group, to kind of go through as we start to relook at the details.
So what we've discussed tonight is moving uses around, not changing what's allowed in that district, just how it gets processed
I think.
administratively. So I don't know that public mentioning that convenience commercial establishment should be conditional versus permitted is going to have any bearing on the 7 of your decision on that. I think your guys' determination on whether or not that should be uses is going to have the bearing on it, unless there's something further that I'm not understanding. Like if it comes to design requirements of a convenience commercial establishment, that might be different, but just having the use itself isn't that large of a step change to necessarily warrant public comment on that. I guess I'm all for having the public voices be heard. I just want to make sure that the time and effort that you guys are putting in and staff's putting in is directed that effectively. Because the other comment I guess I'd have from a staff perspective on that is we continue to talk about activity centers, and I think it's a large topic of discussion. But at the same time, that's only a portion of our master plan, and we have other goals and objectives that are set forth. And when we take time every meeting to talk about it, we're neglecting those other things. And I'm not sitting here telling you that the other things should be more of a priority than activity center. That's totally up to the 7 of you. But just understand that that's the time that you guys are spending on one topic and directing staff to work on one topic when there's multiple others to do. So if that's what we want to put our time and effort into, then I would suggest that the 7 of you have a study session or something where we can still listen to the public comment. We could have them come in and talk and present in a study session style, but having it as just an ad hoc committee or as like an open house doesn't give the 7 of you any more insight than the subplan currently does. So I think having special meeting where it's the only topic of discussion and you guys are asking questions and throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, that would be more effective at helping you and aid in your decision-making moving forward. And by doing it as a study session or a special meeting too, you open up your regularly scheduled meetings to process applications or work on some of the other objects and objectives inside the master plan as well. That will require that 4 of the 7 of you at least commit to that extra time. But that would be, I think, a more effective method to do some of the things I'm hearing you talk about this evening.
Actually, I'm wondering how to turn my mic on. Is it appropriate for the chairperson, to appoint members of an ad hoc committee rather than ask for volunteers? And the reason I ask the question is that I think we need a cross-section of opinions from the commission, because there's a wide variety of opinions, and I don't think it's useful for us to get 4 members who are fairly closely aligned. I think it should be a robust discussion with a cross-section of opinions.
Well, I think the bylaws state, that the chair has discretion to appoint members. I'd hesitate to tell any one of you that you need to do something. I think it would be I think it would be something we discuss and agree upon.
Exactly.
So, I don't know, that's just, that's my opinion.
Yeah,
but
I agree. I guess the point is that I think we need to make sure that there's to the best of our ability, to make sure there's a variety of opinions on that committee.
I agree.
Can I ask, is there opposition to doing study sessions with the entire planning commission instead of a subset? And the reason I ask is because with items like the ADU ad hoc committee, we had 3 commission members who showed up and put a lot of work into presenting the full commission with a study on ADUs. And then throughout this past year, we've worked on modifying that slightly as we've talked as a full commission. So would it behoove us, instead of having 4 meetings at an ad hoc state with only 3 of you present, could we have 2 study sessions where we have the full commission present, and then those things would be fleshed out and things would be done in a more effective manner?
I'd really be in favor of that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. So then we can use our regular meetings for other business, maybe.
Yeah, and you'd still be progressing on this issue. You'd just be doing it on a bi-monthly or quarterly basis or whatever cadence deemed necessary.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, that's kind of how we tackled the master plan years ago. We'd have our regular meetings, then we'd have study sessions about the master plan, so.
It's a large issue to tackle. I don't envy your position. I think there's a lot to consider and a lot to understand in making the decisions moving forward with the subplan. So I just want to make sure that the 7 of you have the best and most information you can in order to have that. And I think by having everybody present, or a majority of you present, would behoove you better than if we only laid that responsibility on 3 folks.
That's a great suggestion.
And I think it would make sense to initiate that committee or those meetings after October, when we get some kind of indication from the road commission what's
We
going to
can
happen.
definitely do that.
Because October's actually pretty quick.
Yeah, it's already almost September, which is
So-
crazy.
It won't be that long.
So in the meantime, Cody, can you give us a punch list of what the next things that you deem that we need to be working on? Or
I would say like the most prevalent from what I'm hearing your discussion tonight is each commission member should take a look at this section 15.2 in Article 15 on the uses, and kind of like Tim started to do, start outlining what uses you think are permitted and need to stay permitted, or maybe permitted and might need to be pushed into conditional, or if there's any other uses you need to add or remove. And just literally take Article 15, write it in
Right.
pen, and then when we come to a special study session, we can just go down the line and discuss that. I think that's going to be a good conversation starter instead of coming into it cold. We'll have to do a little homework beforehand, but it
Right,
will-
so that's one issue. Can you give, how about three bullets? So, because between now and October, we have a few weeks where we can, hopefully, each of us can dig into it on our own and kind of get some of this stuff answered.
I mean, my understanding from the discussion tonight is it might be more effective to look at just one activity center at a time, treat them separately. I know previously it was agreed upon to look at north and west combined. They are different enough that they warrant the potential to look at them differently. So I think starting with uses in the North Activity Center might be your most concrete place to start. I think discussing that will bring up ancillary points, and since it's such a big topic, I don't want to start with 3 major points of conversation when the first point of conversation of use alone will, justify talking about setbacks and mixed uses and other things that might need to happen in order to make the uses more closely fit the subplan. So I would just start with the one. I don't know that I have 2 other off the top of my head that would be beneficial to do homework on at this point.
Okay. And then, moving that aside for a minute here, can you give us a list of other things that we, as the Planning Commission, should be working on? I mean, do you have a list of priorities?
Yeah, so in the master plan, there is a section, and forgive me, I don't remember what number off the top of my head, that the previous planning commission and planner worked together to make the master plan, but also as part of that and with board approval, set different tasks and objectives and put them in phases. And so there's 4 phases, I believe, and a couple sub-phases, but it lists out what the planning commission and board at the time that was adopted, which is 2023, I believe, envisioned as your priorities. And so there's already a list of them, but I would be happy to put them in a packet and email them as well.
Just food for thought, as we move into this.
Yeah, we have a lot of documentation as a planning commission and staff. Like, we have 240 pages of zoning ordinance. We have an 84-page subplan. Like, I'm never expecting anyone to remember everything that's on all the pages. It's impossible. Even staff on a day-to-day basis can't remember the nitty-gritty of everything. But the priority and task list is something that I can pull out and send to everybody so we can have a fresh look at it for sure.
I'd like to take a look at it, thanks.
So I think to move on for tonight, we're going to look at the uses individually and kind of revisit that, and then we'll let the other planning commission members know, and then shoot for October or post-October kind of study session to get focused on this and get it moving ahead at whatever pace it ends up moving at. So, is there anything else to discuss about this tonight? Did we beat around that bush enough? Do you need any?
No, so just to repeat and make sure I understand, The plan moving forward is commission members and staff are going to relook at Article 15.2 on uses and bring that to the first special meeting study session that will happen sometime after October, when the Grand Traverse County Road Commission is going to update us on the progress of the straight East Long, North Long intersection and go from there.
Just out of curiosity, was there a written, was there a plan submitted?
Yeah, so the Road Commission, as part of their grant funding application, has a large packet. Forgive me, I don't remember how many pages, but it describes the project and the reasons for the project that they submitted to the federal government. So they do have a copy. They gave me a paper copy, which is like this thick,
I'm
but
sure, yeah.
I'm more than happy to give you a copy of that if you'd like.
I don't want a copy of it, but was there an engineered map?
Uh,
Engineered plans?
Preliminary, things can change as they get funding for it, but yes, they had a preliminary peanut-style roundabout, I guess, or two roundabouts close together. That seems to be the common method for traffic engineers to do traffic calming measures lately. It reduces the number of potential collision points, like in a four-spot intersection, there's X number, and then in a roundabout, it's like a third or a fourth of that many collision points, so.
It's possible we can get a copy of the map?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. We'll move on from this topic to our second public comment period. I knew you were going to say something. Name and address, please.
Oh, yeah. I'm Tina Allen, 10120 Deer Path South. I have no skin in this game, so I'm going to talk. 100 years ago, Bob, I don't remember if you were still in your teens when this happened, when we were together on the Planning Commission or not, but we had an application from Pinecrest Woodworking, which is on Bass Lake Road. It is not in your commercial district, but it is a commercial use. And at that time, it was non-conforming use. They couldn't do anything to change anything. And I remember the man who owned it, although I don't remember his name, saying, why would you be in business if you didn't want to get better and get bigger and move forward, right? And that really hit me, obviously, because I remember it all this time. So I just had a couple of thoughts. One is maybe inventorying the existing businesses and the uses of them that you have right now in those districts, so you could kind of get an idea of like who's under what, right? And then really consider if anything you do, the whole time you're considering it, are you going to make anybody who's in existence non-conforming? So I totally get the idea about future development. We want to guide future development for how we want the township to look. But I don't believe we want to put anybody in a position where they can't use their business and expand their business the way they'd like to do it. So that was all. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Anybody else? Chris? Sonny will say something.
Sonny Wheelock, A.O. Wheelock and Son Welling at 9954 North Long Lake Road. I've been involved in local politics for a long time, a lot of planning commission meetings, public hearings, and those kind of things. One of the issues that you're going to run into with this is the fact that Long Lake Township only has 3 classes of commercial property. You have general commercial, you have the local commercial, and you have the hamlet zone. You can't look at specifically saying we're going to change the uses that are permitted in the local commercial district on the north end because you don't have a separation. You'd either have to create new zoning requirements for that portion of the property, or the changes you make to local commercial are going to affect everything that is designated local commercial in Long Lake Township. Cody may have some better idea to do it. Overlay districts sometimes work, but, it's difficult to say, we're going to allow this in this local commercial district, but we're not going to allow it in that one, when you only have title for one type of local commercial property. So you have to be careful about doing that. So just keep in mind that the whole sub-plan thing, the one major thing that stuck in my head when I read the 84 pages or whatever it was, at the end of it, it says that they did not recommend any rezoning. But, so you have to be careful when you talk about making changes to one zone or the other, because the only way you're going to do that is to create new zoning requirements for that district, which you're going to have to retitle them.
Thanks, Sonny. Anybody else?
Adam Orth, owner of the Long Lake Storage Vault, 10138 North Long Lake Road. It's just, it was, I can't remember what her name was, the first lady that got up here said, you're in the business to expand and continue to grow. I mean, our situation at the storage vault is we, had bought the property from Sonny and did our development and stuff and had it in phases and that. I know we discussed this in the spring of, the reason we did our development the way that we did was to start in the front and kind of build our way back in. So if, the changes and stuff that you guys are looking at doing, if that's going to affect our long-term development out, doesn't seem exactly too fair for us from a standpoint of buying the property and then expanding it in phases as we all discussed and got approved for. So I would look to make sure that any of these existing businesses that may be similar to ours that have been approved for the use and then future expansion for that property that was bought and intended use for would be somehow grandfather claused in or something. It'd be kind of like, if somebody had a neighborhood development and they're putting houses in and then all of a sudden it says, well, this property can't be used for, houses anymore and we want to change it to where it's now commercial. Well, all of a sudden, I don't think you're going to end up developing the back quarter of the property into commercial property when you have to drive through a neighborhood to get to it. It's kind of the same situation that we're up against with our property. We're somewhat landlocked on the back side, so I would just look to make sure that there's something to kind of encompass our situation in. The other thing was, you guys were talking about, making the, 5,000 square foot and reducing that down. Well, who's to say that you couldn't have a Dollar General, which seems to be where all this discussion came from a few years ago. What would hold them back from having a parcel and saying, well, we want to have a Dollar General that has the grocery store section in one 5,000 square foot building, and then right across the parking lot have their retail, sales of, all their different products and knickknacks and stuff like that. I mean, it's ultimately 10,000 square feet, but you got two 5,000 square foot buildings. So I don't know if that changes any thought process there either, but there's obviously a certain amount of square footage you can put on an acres or, size of property that you have, but that could be a way that somebody could get around it. But I don't know, just thoughts.
Thanks, Adam. Anybody else? We'll close that public comment period at 7:02. Reports. Well, we don't have a township board member present tonight or ZBA members, so we'll skip those two. Planner update report. Cody?
How's that? Can you hear me now? Perfect. I'm not in a Verizon commercial. I just want to make sure you can hear me. When we last left the meeting, the commission voted and approved to send ADU draft ordinance language to legal for review. Staff did that, got it ready to go, sent it to the Record Eagle for posting in the paper so we could have a public hearing this evening. There's was an issue and miscommunication with the Record Eagle that resulted in us not being able to publish it 15 days ahead of time. So that public hearing will be held next meeting at our regularly scheduled meeting when we can get that in the paper 15 days beforehand. There was some staff change at the Record Eagle and that wasn't communicated out, and so we sent it to the wrong person waiting on a response, never got one. The Tree Preservation Committee is the second item. The Tree Preservation Committee had their second meeting here on the 20th, which is last week. Items that were discussed, as shown in the minutes that you guys acknowledged earlier tonight, were presentation, different committee members were assigned different common ordinance types and looked at them in further depth and came back to the group and discussed those items and how it might be applicable or not applicable to Long Lake Township as a whole. And then staff presented the skeleton outline of the summary, which the committee will be putting together and finishing, and that's what will be handed to the full commission. So at the end of the committee, the seven of you will have the ability to read hopefully a short and concise and in-depth, all at the same time, summary of the efforts that staff and residents are putting into working on that issue for your decision-making. And I believe that's all I have from last thing was, some of you, I think there's maybe one or two that didn't get it in the mail, got notice from the APA or MTA on planning topics and discussions. There should be right behind your name placard. If they're not, I will get you one. But take a look over that, and if you are interested in attending or learning more about those topics, we can get you squared away to get to those events. So that is, I believe, the last thing I have.
Cody, just a question for you. The tree preservation ordinance language, is that going to come to the next planning commission meeting?
Most likely not.
Okay.
There's still some work the committee needs to do, and especially with the NFI, we're trying to coincide delivery and discussion on those at the same time so we can be effective when that comes out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Cody. We have no correspondence, other than some of us have those flyers. But, Commissioner comments? Sherry, anything? Tim? Dan? All right. Well then, we are at adjournment, so look for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sherry and support by Tim to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.